Hey guys, so today I want to talk about this concept of the high performing dad. Now, it's something that I've just come up with because it's something that I've just been doing creatively in my sort of space that I allow myself for that to happen. And really, it was figuring out actually what the dopamine reset, which is my program at the minute to eliminate distractions and bad habits for men specifically, who is it targeting? What is it targeting? I was just trying to think about the guys that I already have in it, myself, included in that, and what we sort of want from life. And I think a lot of it is to realize our full potential, to not leave anything wasted in life. And that comes from also a work point of view and from a life point of view, right? And so there's these three principles I'm living my life by at the minute, which is work hard, play hard, rest hard. So work hard is not just around specifically work. Now, business for me, it might be job for you, but it's kind of, of course it's working hard to make more money, to have more freedom, to have more impact on the world. And that's for me specifically, and that might be the same for you. But it's also working hard in other aspects of my life, like my health, right? So the gym 3 times a week and a run once a week at the minute because I have a 3-month-old baby, and that's really the max I can do right now. It's working hard in my nutrition. It's working hard in my mindfulness or mindset, and working hard in these things. And that just means that when I'm setting or sitting down to do these things, I am 100% focused on that thing. Play hard. I think then often when we look to become the high performing dad or a high performing man, we often skip out the fun part. And ultimately, like if we're not having fun, we're not being creative, like I just mentioned at the start, we're going to actually not be able to do the rest of it because everything filters from enjoyment, right? You can't be disciplined if you don't enjoy it. It's just a fact. Like you're just going to burn out and not really care. So it's all about having that enjoyment and that fun. So play hard isn't going out and getting pissed all the time, right? It's not going out and avoiding all responsibilities. It's laughter, it's fun, it's creativity, it's maybe, for me, a lot of that is going out for a hike, and sometimes all these three principles overlap, right? But it's going out for a hike with our mates, or it's going out for a trail run in the mountains, or it could be it could even be something like a movie night. It could even be meeting up with some friends, right? There's tons of different things. But also rest hard as well. And everything comes from a place of rest, in my opinion, when you're trying to be a high performer. It comes from the stuff that you do outside of work, outside of your life. And it comes in how you rest. Now, like I said, things overlap. So part of rest for me is definitely hiking with my mates, right? That I feel tired, don't get me wrong, physically. But I feel so good for days afterwards, my mental clarity, focus, and everything. So they're 3 principles I'm living my life by. And the reason why I just wanted to tangent this video with that is because they're really important to becoming the high performing dad, but also this concept of the high performing dad. And this concept all comes from people telling me since my wife got pregnant and then since we've had the baby, that, oh, it's this way when you have a baby, it's that way when you have a baby. And I just think, why? Why does it have to be that way, And for me, I think often dads end up having to choose between being a good dad or providing, right? And of course, ultimately, hopefully, a lot of you watching this video are doing one or the other. And you probably have a really good job anyway. And so ultimately, we probably have gone down the provide route. My dad, as an example, I'm sure like all dads, probably started out, I don't know this for a fact, by the way, and he's not with us anymore, so couldn't tell you. But my dad, I'm sure, started out to provide for us, right? But then ultimately the job gets in the way and we end up sort of working long hours, 12, 14, 16 hours. We end up putting more priority into the job than into our family, and ultimately ends in divorce. It ends in estranged kids, or not seeing them very often. And so this concept for me is built out of questioning why things have to be like that. Why does it have to be one or the other? And why do I only have to prioritize work and not prioritize my family? And so if you've seen any of my videos so far, you'll maybe know that this year I'm on a mission to triple my income without it impacting my health or my family. And that's a huge thing for me, because them three things really are the most important priorities in my life, near enough. And so why can't I just balance all these out as a high performing dad, become a high performing dad? And so what that means is I'm going to focus on business. I'm going to focus on tripling my income so I can provide better for my family, so I can have more impact on men, so I can do that. But ultimately I have less time because I'm now a dad. And so I also want to be a good dad. I also want to be there. I also want to be mentally present for my kids. I don't want to just be sat on my phone scrolling through social media. I want to be actually there, present, and have energy for them, mental capacity for them. And often when we're working and we have a business and we're stressed out with it, it's all we ever think about. We get poor sleep over it. We end up not hitting the gym or working out because of it. And what I've come to realize over the last few years is a lot of these structures and routines that will make you a high performer, we only ever think about them in a work capacity. Maybe that's productivity hacks, maybe it's planning, scheduling, maybe it's supplements, even like lion's mane or whatever focus supplements are out there now, more coffee, more caffeine. And ultimately, I think that high performance comes from all the structures we have in our life, not just work. It comes from our health, how we are in our health. Our focus and mental clarity and energy comes from what we put into our bodies, right? Garbage in, garbage out. What are we doing? Are we moving? Or are we just sitting down all day? Are we getting to the gym? Are we doing some resistance? Are we doing some cardio? Balancing that out. And it doesn't have to be anything major. But again, becoming a high performing dad requires all of this balance. And this is something that I'm personally really striving to do this year. So I'm trying to triple my income without impacting my family or my health. And I'm doing that in three ways. Number one is I'm creating this legacy map for myself, which is what I've done with my clients. So it's creating the legacy that I want to leave in life, working towards this high performing dad, right? But I've been intentional about that. I've not just gone, I'm going to become this high performing dad where I balance everything out really nicely. It's actually setting out, right? Setting it out into a document. Number two, it's eliminating distractions. Like ultimately distractions are, and this is what the dopamine reset program is all about, and this is why I've been thinking about this a lot. Distractions are ultimately going to stop you from becoming a high performing dad, because let's say you wake up 6 a.m, you hit the snooze button, you're then behind schedule, but the first thing you do is go on your phone, you check emails, you see a bad email, or you just like start to get scattered already. You're then rushing to get ready, commute to work, you're stressed out, you're irritable already, you get to work, you then try to sit down and do some work, you maybe just procrastinate and do some of the stuff that actually doesn't really need to get done in comparison to the stuff that needs to get done. And then, but you have this idea. Often in my life, I'm trying to do something and I have these ideas. I'm like, I just need to check that out. And you jump on your phone and you then sometimes just go on social media because it's a habit, it's an impulse. And then you end up in the scroll. You forgot what you even went on your phone for. And then you've got to try and get back to work and focus, and that takes time. And we go through these stages and ultimately no true proper work really gets done. And so this concept of eliminating distractions is really, really key, right? And this for me is going to be the biggest thing, because to become a high performing dad, I think in what I've been thinking is you've got to set priorities out. And that for me has come from doing the legacy map, my own creation. And this allows me to figure out, okay, what are my priorities in my life right now? And for me, I've said them already. It's business, it's impacting more people, having more money, and family. Because I want to balance that out. I don't want to just focus on work where I'm not with my family. Sometimes the parameters might shift. Sometimes I might have to work a little bit more, but I still want to spend a minimum amount of time with family and be available for them. Look, I'm not saying I'm perfect at this. This is by no means a video to say that I am perfect at this and I've got it nailed down. But the most important thing, I've got systems and structures in place, and putting systems and structures in place to change this. And of course, my health. Like, those three things are the biggest priorities right now for me. Everything else isn't necessarily a distraction. It's just a nice bolt on at the end. Okay. And I have other priorities. I think I have about 8 or 9, remembering off the top of my head, in my life. Which includes other stuff such as resting. It includes other stuff such as friends and finance and stuff like that. But ultimately, those things for me at the minute, I know they're going to be better if I just focus on all these 3 things at this moment in my life and just try and keep it really simple. So I think often as people go down, it's like, we start to provide, we want to provide for our families, so we work harder, we start to work longer. We then end up forgetting the reason why we're actually doing it, and we end up down this hole of we're just working more. And then I think because we end up probably a little bit distant from our family, we keep doing it, right? And this is not, I don't think, a conscious process, but we keep doing it. And it's almost like this escapism from having to face our true reality. And so I don't want to get like that. Like, I don't want to get the way my dad was and end up, just where he was. Like, ultimately, he died of a brain tumor at the age of 50. And when I researched the specific brain tumor he had, a lot of it said around lifestyle factors, and stress was one of those, and he was always stressed, right? And so I know if I'm living to my priorities, then I'm living the life that I've built. And, of course, if you put everything into work, you might earn more money. You might get higher, or one position higher than you would if you're trying to balance it out. And I hate the word balance, by the way, but I just keep saying it. I need to find a better word for that. But ultimately, that often, if you go and research millionaires, billionaires' stories, right? A lot of them, unless they've done it properly, say it's not worth it, right? Say that earning all this money just isn't sort of worth it. There's a certain point where it gets okay, but then they've lost their wife, they've lost their kids, they've lost their friends, they're lonely, they're alienated. And so what do you have at the end of all that money, right? But you can still strive to be the best at work and get promoted, or build a business, or build more money and wealth. And you can do that very, very well. I 100% believe that. You can also then be present and be around for your kids, set quality time with them, have 2-3 hours a day where you're solely focused on them. And depending on the age of your kids, you're either playing around with them, because you're healthy as well, you've set time aside for that, or you're just interacting with them, because maybe they're too young to be doing that sort of stuff yet. You're helping them develop, and ultimately, like, that requires getting rid of the distractions. And it's hard, like it is, because these distractions serve a purpose, but ultimately what we've tended to do is wire our brains. I was saying earlier about this routine of getting up and feeling a bit frazzled and stuff like that, and going straight on social media, on emails, and then struggling to work. Like, it's because we've wired our brain for distractions. We've wired our brain for dopamine, and all it wants is dopamine, dopamine, dopamine. And what it's like is when you give kids sugar, right? That they get really excited and a bit loopy, right? They go a bit crazy, they've got so much energy and they feel good, but then ultimately they crash and burn. They feel tired, they're irritable, right? They're a bit grumpy, they might even get really upset. And that happens with us with dopamine, right? It's the same sort of thing. And when we're just constantly seeking out instant gratification and notifications on our phones, buying more shit that we don't need, just scrolling social media, endless messages, junk food, alcohol, whatever it is, we're going to start to feel less and less purpose in our life, because ultimately we're going to go further and further away from the man that we want to be. I was even told that I've yet to put the dad weight on. And I'm like, I get that I am, if you don't know, I've been a health and fitness coach as well, for the past 10 years. And, you know, I get that I know a lot about it, but I used to be overweight. So there's probably a real chance that I probably could go back there if I like really thought about it. But I don't want to, right? So ultimately, like, these are the choices that I'm making. And if you want to sort of become a high performing dad who is thriving at work, you know, earning more money, getting promoted, or getting more business, who is focused, getting more done in 4 hours than most guys do in 12, also then being able to go home, or if you're like me, work from home, go downstairs, and then get straight into family life, switch off from work, stress, get off our phones, be present and active with our kids. Also balancing that with our own physical and mental health and making sure that we've got those routines in place, while also resting. We've come up with this amazing system for our life to become the high performing dad. And so just going back to those 3 life principles, like the 2 things that I'm doing this year work hand in hand, of working hard, playing hard, resting hard. And I think it's so simple, those 3 principles, that it's so easy to do. But instead we want to watch TV and binge Netflix. I've actually just recently deleted Netflix, and I'll give you a bit of insight into that. I literally did it because I was just finding that I was just trying to seek out things on Netflix instead of there being shows that I actually really wanted to watch. And so it wasn't from a case that I was trying to be like a monk and just get rid of it all. But what it showed me actually is that I don't need it. I always thought I needed it. And it feels like nowadays Netflix is a standard to have, right? And don't get me wrong, we have other things because we've got Amazon Prime or Disney and Apple, right? But that was part of the reason why I deleted it, because I'm like, I don't need all of these, right? I'm actually watching shows on the other 3 at the minute, but probably get rid of one of those once they're gone. And I don't need them all the time. And ultimately what I found is, instead of just, what I used to do was in my breaks and stuff like that, instead of actually just chilling out, or maybe it's reading, or maybe it's journaling, or maybe just getting outside when it's a nice day like today, I was just going on Netflix, putting on a show that I watched a million times and just watching it for the sake of it, right? And then I wouldn't be that productive getting back into work, you know, because I'd maybe just chuck on the next show or whatever, you know, and ultimately fried my brain more. And what I've realized since deleting Netflix is that another distraction gone. Actually, I was worried about filling the void of Netflix and other things unconsciously, right? And this has come to light since. And this is the same as other distractions like your phone. It's this fear of who you actually have to become and whether you actually can become that man. But you don't know until you try, right? And ultimately, if you fail, at least you've given it a go. But you won't, because when you fail, you can just pick yourself back up again and try something different, or try it again, right? Because ultimately we're never going to end up being perfect. And deleting Netflix has actually shown me all that I don't need it, right? I don't need these things in my life. I have wired my brain to need these things. And so what we need to do is rewire our brain to stop needing them, right? And reset our dopamine pathways. And that's exactly what I do inside the dopamine reset. And I created a free training, just as a little side note, for anyone that wants to look at the system. So all you need to do is comment system and I'll send it to you. It's just literally the system that I give my clients in the dopamine reset to rewire their brain and reset dopamine pathways so that, you know, they can work hard, play hard, rest hard, so they can become the high performing dad. They can eliminate distractions and bad habits, so they've got better relationships, better health, more money. That's really the key to that. So I wanted to come onto here and talk about the concept of the high performing dad and what it requires to become that. And I think, like I said, it's come down to eliminate it, first of all, what I've set in my sort of life this year around trying to triple my income. And ultimately, unknowingly, I've come up with this high performing dad, which is we need to create the legacy we want to leave. Make sure that we know who it is, the man that we actually want to be first, right? Because the high performing dad, while is a set person who is reaching his full potential, who is energized, focused, doesn't procrastinate, productive, has tons of time, quality time with the family, but works hard, is doing and thriving at work as well, is also on top of his health, is also on top of his fun and rest as well. And I've unknowingly come up with this high performing dad, this structure. So really it's creating that legacy, number one. Number two, you have to eliminate distractions. And I think that comes first. I think eliminate distractions comes first, because when you're constantly in distraction mode, you can't actually give yourself space to think about what legacy you want to leave behind. So get rid of distractions, get 10 plus hours back in your week to spend on family and spend creating your legacy. And then, number three, I've actually forgotten what number three is for me in this whole year. It's obviously not as important, right, as the other things that have got those two things. I'm sure it is. It's just one of those things that you forgot, that you end up forgetting. But I think it comes down mostly to those two things. And if I was to add a third thing, it would genuinely be, by the way, I do these videos just off the cuff. So I want them to be authentic. So this is why I'm coming up with this on the call. It's not like written down anywhere or anything like that. I would say the third thing to becoming a high performing dad is probably, the first thing that comes to mind is giving yourself permission to do it and stop listening to all the BS from yourself, from your own limiting beliefs, but also from society or people around you saying that has to be a certain way, right? I think that we need to start forging our own path, and dads who want everything can get it. And it comes to mind that sort of jack of all trades is a master of none, or whatever it is. But I don't believe that, if I'm honest. And I believe you can still be a master. You just need to set, you don't need to set a million different things in your life. I'd say the high performing dad needs to focus on three things: person, themselves, people, so the people that they love the most, and pursuits, work, fun, hobbies. They're the three things that you need to focus on the most. How easy is that, right? And it comes back to work hard, play hard, rest hard. And so stop listening to all of society, because you can do it. I've already proved this pre-kids that I can do things. I ran an ultra marathon while building a business. I was getting in shape last year while building a business, and obviously having a family and everything else. Now I have a 3-month-old. I'm doing it again. I'm figuring out what this life looks like now. And the big thing is, don't be scared to change it along the way, like I've had to do. I think sometimes we get stuck in routine, in systems and structures that we've implemented in the day, and see it as exciting that we have to change things, right? See it as fun. But ultimately, when we want to become a high performing dad, we just have to give ourselves permission to do it, right? And permission to fail, permission to feel like we're not good enough, I guess, ultimately feel like we are good enough, permission to just go after it. And the biggest thing you can do is to have that conversation with your wife. Talk to her and tell her that this is what you want, because everyone needs to be on board. But my thing is I've always wanted to achieve things in life, in business, in work, and I still do, and I still have high ambitions, right? But I also don't want to be the dad who's not there for their kids. And whether that's physically or mentally, physically because I've ended up divorced because of it, or mentally because I'm checked out because my brain's always at work or a business. And it's something that's going to be a continual struggle. But again, it's like choose your hard. I'd far rather choose this hard than being out of shape, feeling lethargic, feeling unconfident in my clothes, feeling guilty and all the time because I'm not being the man that I want to be, and distracted, unfulfilled, unpurposeful. Like, that's hard as well, right? Because I've actually been there, and this is why all of this has come about, because I've been there before. There was one walk particularly I said to my wife, I feel lost. I feel like I've got no purpose, and that was the first realization that things need to change. So if this is you, remember, I've offered you the free training, the dopamine reset system, completely free. Just comment saying system and I'll send it out to you. Like I said, completely free of charge. It just goes through the system that I use and give my clients to use to eliminate distractions and end bad habits, so that you can become free to become the high performing dad, or you just become a better dad, or you become more focused at work, or you have deeper connected relationships. So appreciate you all for listening to this. If you want to know more about the actual dopamine reset program, and how I can help you to eliminate distractions to become the high performing dad, again, you can just message me, or whether you've come from Instagram or somewhere else, you can message me, or you can just comment below and I'll reach out. Stay sharp, stay focused, and let's go crush it together.